With us now is Craig Braun. Welcome to the show again, Craig. How are you?
Good to see you again.
Good. Now, where are you calling us from? What city and state are you in?
I'm on East 56th Street in Manhattan, New
Okay,
York,
very nice.
Bloomingdale's country.
So each time you've been on, we've talked about a lot of different things because you've had a very interesting, illustrious career. So from your art, from your packaging, from working with musicians, working with the famous tongue sticking out cover of the Rolling Stones. But nowadays, more recently, instead of doing those crazy, wonderful album covers with famous artists, you are an artist yourself and you're acting. Theater has called your name. So tell us about that. Tell us about the smell of the grease paint and why you decided to become a TV film actor.
Well, it actually started when I was 16 years old, and I was in a boys' Catholic high school in Chicago, and I did a small part in a production of Our Town.
Oh,
And I felt that the same thing that you feel when the camera's going, that kind of vibration that, here it is. And but of course, back in those days, you got married when you were 22 years old, and then life takes over, and that's just a pipe dream. But if I fast forward through a couple of careers, and being, I think, 8 or 9 years sober, a producer from Washington, D.C., with an independent Westinghouse station there got a hold of me. He said he heard that I speak with that kids in high school and colleges about drugs and alcohol. And he asked me if I'd be interested in writing and hosting a show called the National Teenage Drug and Alcohol Quiz.
wow.
So I said yes. Whenever I'm asked to do something in that area of addiction, I do it.
And really,
And
that's how you got into acting, Craig? You got into acting because of that person reaching out to you about that topic?
that was the genesis, I'd say,
Okay.
because I went ahead. We're rolling, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went ahead with that commitment, and I really garnered a lot of the input from the National Alcoholism Quiz. I just made it a hipper quiz, 12 questions. Do you get
Okay.
high before you go to school? That kind of thing. And so I did the show, and I spoke to maybe, I don't know, 1,500 different classes in some huge school in New Jersey, and the name escapes me. And then we interviewed kids who had recovered in New York, and we put together a half-hour special, which was then sold and syndicated based on, people in various towns attaching local, addiction programming, alcohol programming to it, and have a reach out number, et cetera, et cetera. So he syndicated it to about 190 markets, and he came to town to have dinner with me and spend an evening. And I had tickets. I was working at the time for Time Warner. I was a marketing director in the music group, and I had tickets to the Knicks. So we went to the basketball game, and at the halftime, he turned to me. Everyone leaves to get their beer and go to the toilet. And he turned to me and he said, "If this were the main event of your life, Craig, what would you be doing?" I said, "Oh, I'd probably be maybe a boxing announcer for HBO. I'm much better than the guys that do the fights." And so he said, "Is that the truth?" And I said, "No, you really want to know the truth?" And he said, "Yeah, I'd like to know." He said, "You're an interesting guy, and and I'm a spiritual guy, and I want to know, what people would really be doing if they had their druthers." So I said, "I'd be an actor." So he said, "Did you ever tell anyone that?" I said, "No. You're the first person, and you are actually the last person I will ever tell that to." So he said, "How long has that been?" Well, I said, "Since a seed was planted when I was 16 years old, and I've held it in probably the deepest part of my unconscious or subconscious. And you're asking me the question, that's what I would have done had I had my dream realized. So he said, well, maybe it's not too late. I said, hey, man, take a look at me. I'm 54 years old. It's too late to go to that party. So he said, well, maybe it is. I don't know. But why don't you think about maybe taking some acting lessons? At least you'll know what it's like. And I said, no, I poo-pooed it. And he said something to me as the end of the game. We started walking out, and he said, you know, I'm thinking about this dream of yours that was never realized, and you never told anyone. He said, you know, you're a guy who's done pretty much everything he's wanted to do in his life, and if that's stuck in you, that's the one that's unrealized, maybe you should do it, because when you go down for the count, this is what got me. When you go down for the count, Craig, that may be the major regret of your life. Holy. And Michael Learned, I don't know if you know her. She was on a show called Walton. She was a very, very close friend of mine in California. She recommended me to an agent of hers. We read together a few times. We read some plays. And this guy signed me, and all of a sudden I'm doing Law and Order, and then I'm doing a movie with John Travolta and Hugh Jackman, and then I'm doing another movie with Philip Seymour Hoffman and Bob De Niro, and you know, all of a sudden I'm starting to work. I mean, it didn't happen overnight. I did a lot of NYU graduate films, short films, and a lot of off, 3 or 4 off-Broadway theater work. You know, I really paid my dues. There wasn't any, there wasn't any shortcuts behind it. But that's in 5 minutes. That's how I became an actor at age 55. I don't think I worked until I probably worked about 2.5, 3 years after I started studying. So yeah, so I've been acting about 20, 25 years now.
Well,
And
Craig, I thank you again for joining us, and looking forward to more. But thank you very much, and I was going to say your sharing today was so open and so authentic that I know that there's somebody listening at home that's not following their dreams, but because of you, now they will. So I wish you all the best and happy journeys to you until we get a chance to talk again, okay?
okay, Donna,
Okay.
I'm sorry I didn't give you a chance to interject much, but I was on a
I
roll.
don't even need to interject. You spoke so perfectly. It's totally wonderful.
Great to see you and your crew.
Thank you so much. You too. Be well. Bye-bye.
Cheers.